I don't think the banter between the characters is as strong as it was in the original Star Wars movie. You don't have who's scruffy looking. You don't have I would rather kiss a Wookiee. I could arrange that. It's not as strong here. You can tell George Lucas has trouble writing some of this dialogue. The Phantom Menace is directed by George Lucas and stars Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, Ahmed Best, Ian McDermott, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, and Frank Oz. It is the fourth film in the Skywalker saga and a prequel to the original trilogy. It shows how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, and it starts the entire saga. Now, I know that a lot of people have their own opinions on this movie. I mean, this is probably one of the most reviewed films of all time. I know that everything there is to say about this movie has been said already, but I'm just gonna give my opinion on it and talk about the entire thing as a whole. So now, The Phantom Menace came out in 1999. And I was 5 years old back then, so to me it came out while I was the perfect age, and I loved it as a kid. I couldn't have been happier with it. So I think that you have to take this into consideration, because this was like the perfect movie for me back then. I couldn't really criticize its flaws. I didn't know anything really about movie making. To me, it was just another awesome Star Wars movie that came out in 1999. So I went in and I was blown away. I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved of course, the special effects and the ending. The ending is really the most exciting part of the film, in my opinion. I still think that. And I love Jar Jar Binks as well. I mean, I'm a kid. I don't know any better, right? So, going in as a kid into this movie and as an adult, I think offers very two different kinds of experiences. As a kid, I think you fall in love with this movie because it's got an adventure side. It's very kiddish with its jokes, and I think it's a lot more for kids than adults compared to the original trilogy. The original trilogy was mostly for young adults or adults, and here I think that the tone has completely shifted for kids. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that per se, but I do think that a lot of people were expecting a tone considerably similar to the original trilogy. And I do think that this movie feels a bit like the original trilogy in some aspects. We got some of the same places introduced again. Some of the characters, they do feel a lot like the characters in the original trilogy. We got Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, Padme Amidala. While I don't like them as much as, say, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, or Leia Organa, I still think that they're interesting characters overall. I just don't think that they have the best chemistry with one another. And of course, Jake Lloyd, I don't really blame him for this movie. I don't think he's that bad, actually. I think that Jake Lloyd is perfectly serviceable for what George Lucas asked him of the role. I really do. I think that Jake Lloyd is an okay actor. Was he the best person to play a young Anakin Skywalker? Probably not, but I don't have a problem with this performance. I just don't think that he's all that amazing per se, but I still don't really hate it. I just think that's what George Lucas asked him to do, and he did it perfectly fine. And I do have a favorite character in this movie. To me, it's Qui-Gon Jinn. I think that Qui-Gon Jinn is this badass Jedi, and I think that he is a lot wiser than all of them. I feel like he's a lot even more wiser than Yoda was in this movie. He's smart. He's the one that found Anakin, and I don't think that anybody else would have. If you put anybody else from the Jedi Council in his shoes, I don't know if they would have found Anakin just like Qui-Gon did. I think that Qui-Gon is a great character, and I would have liked to have seen more of him in the entire saga. So I think that Liam Neeson plays him really well, and I love that he had a great time playing the character. So yeah, the movie is sort of like this political thriller almost, and for kids, I think that can be a bit jarring, a bit too much, because you either do a movie for all for kids, or you just do it for adults. And this movie feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be almost, because if you add political elements in a kids movie, it's gonna feel really out of place, and it does here, because the original trilogy, it had political stuff in it, but very sparingly. Here it's got a lot of it in the prequels, and well, I don't think it's all that horrendous, unlike maybe Attack of the Clones, where I think that the dialogue is really almost unbearable. Here, I think that there are some good quirky one-liners. I like the line that Obi-Wan says, "Oh, the negotiations were short." I like that line. I don't know why. I think it's corny, but I think it's funny. And I like the political aspects, but I do think that the dialogue is a bit stilted. Again, here, I don't think that the dialogue is politically interesting all the time, and I think that's what brings this movie down. When this movie starts, the Jedi are brought in to Naboo. They are sent to negotiate with the Trade Federation, Viceroy Newt Gunray, and so the Republic, they send two Jedis, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn, which are perfect for the job. And this opening action sequence, I think, is pretty neat. It's really sets off the vibe well for in this movie, in my opinion. We start the movie off in Naboo, and then they meet Jar Jar Binks. And now Jar Jar Binks, I don't like the character. For me personally, I love Ahmed Best. I think that Ahmed Best did what he was required to do, but I don't think that Jar Jar is a really interesting character or well-written character. But I think that he's the most written character out of all of these people. We know where he comes from. We know his motivations. We are somewhat sympathetic to Jar Jar. I mean, we just know more about him than all the other characters in this film, which is weird, because he's like the most hated character in this movie, and I think that's fair to say. And we know the most about him. So I love this city that they go to in Naboo, though, when they swim in the water. And then there's like a bunch of lights that appear, and they arrive to this city. And I think that it's absolutely gorgeous. This Gun City looks amazing. They arrive there, and of course, they're asking for safe passage to the other side of the planet. So they have to voyage underwater. So they go talk to Boss Nass. I love the design of the character. I think the design of Boss Nass is just great here. I think the actor that plays him does a very good job with the voice. And they go talk to him, and they manage to also to free Jar Jar, because Jar Jar was going to be punished for his crimes. So they take Jar Jar along. I kind of wish that they wouldn't have. I kind of wish that Jar Jar would have stayed behind here. I think that would serve the story better. You don't really need Jar Jar in this film. She's just there for comic relief. That's the only reason it's there. So I would have liked it better if they had just left Jar Jar there. So they take a ship, and they head out into the waters. And I like this scene. I think it's very action packed, and I like the fish's design. Like there's always a bigger fish. That's what Qui-Gon says. But I do think that the characters' expressions are very stilted. Again, in this movie, it feels a lot like that because there's a lot of special effects and green screen, and the actors don't oftentimes know how to react to certain things. So they have this serious, almost monotone expression all the time during this entire action sequence, compared to like say the original Empire Strikes Back, where most of the time all the actors are usually pretty concerned, and they're just they just really react to the moment of things. But here everybody is just very stilted, and they go to Teed, the capital of Naboo. And then I think the action sequence just is good. I think that it's well made, and it's exciting. They go out to help the captives from the battle droids, and they manage to escape Naboo. So yeah, that's mostly the first act of the film. I think that the first act is exciting enough. So now we also get a few glimpses of the villains, which are mostly Noon Gunray, which I think he's a pretty character. He's all right, I guess. But the main villains are Emperor Palpatine and Darth Maul. Those are the main villains. Now, Darth Maul is one of my favorite characters, as is Emperor Palpatine. I kind of wish we had seen more of them in this film. I think that it would have served the story better if we had just shown more and not kept them in the shadows so much. But the scenes that they do appear in are really cool. I think that Darth Maul could have used more dialogue, because he speaks so much in Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels. He talks a lot, but here he has very minimal dialogue. Maybe that's a choice from George Lucas, or the actor, the lines just didn't work. But I like these two as master and apprentice. And of course, Darth Maul sort of gets killed off at the end of this film, but we know that he doesn't die. So yeah, they leave Naboo, and the Queen's ship is damaged. So that now that they have to go to Tatooine to get repairs. R2D2 helps out with the ship. He repairs it momentarily so that they can escape the blockade. R2D2 is a badass. He's one of the most practical characters in the entire Star Wars saga. So they head out to Tatooine, where they meet Anakin Skywalker. Now, I think that Tatooine here is important in this movie. You kind of have to have Tatooine because that's where Anakin comes from. I get it. But I do think that the pod race sequence, the entire pod race sequence, takes way too much time in the movie. I think that you could have sped things up along. It nearly takes, I think, half an hour of the film, and it doesn't really need it, in my opinion. I think that the pod race sort of becomes not unnecessary, but just repetitive. And you could have cut some sequences, you could have trimmed it down, because the movie sort of comes to a halt, I think, during the entire pod race sequence. Before that, I think it's interesting because you meet Anakin Skywalker and Shmi. And Shmi, I think I just really like her character. She explains to Qui-Gon that there was no father for Anakin, and that she was immaculately conceived. Which is like, oh my god, okay, I get it. He's the chosen one, but really, you didn't really need that. I didn't know if that was like the best storytelling idea, in my opinion, because it just makes Darth Vader so much bigger than life, and that he really didn't start out that way. So I get it. I get it why George Lucas wanted to do that, but okay. So yeah, Qui-Gon Jinn notices that the midichlorians count are much higher in Anakin than like any other Jedi. And so he wants to take Anakin with them. He wants to take Anakin back to Coruscant so that they can not really study him, but try to train him as a Jedi. Qui-Gon makes a deal with Watto. If Anakin wins the pod race, he is liberated. He tries to bargain for him and his mother, but Watto won't have it. So if he wins the race, Anakin is liberated. But if he loses, Watto gets the entire ship. So they roll the dice, and Qui-Gon uses the Force to win. For because he obviously wants Anakin. He doesn't want the mom. So now, like I said, this entire pod race sequence is a bit repetitive. It's too long, and you can tell that they made it so that it could sell like video games at the time, like Nintendo 64 games or other kinds of games. With the pod race, you can just tell. That's why this entire sequence was created. And so Anakin eventually wins. It comes between him and Sebulba, who is just like this worst kind of alien. And Anakin wins the race. So he gets to go and become a Jedi. And his mother doesn't... his mother accepts it, but it's of course it's hard to... it's hard to separate them both. So Anakin eventually makes the decision to leave. He leaves and doesn't look back with Qui-Gon, and now they are attacked with Darth Maul. And I think that the entire action sequence here is really exciting. It's really well made. Darth Maul and Qui-Gon fight while Anakin goes directly to the ship. The ship takes off, and Qui-Gon jumps on the ship while Darth Maul remains on Tatooine. So they finally manage to leave Tatooine, and then they go back to Coruscant. And here, this entire sequence is sort of long and meandering, because you have... I don't know if you have too much going on, but I think that it just takes a while to get to the good stuff, to the finale of this movie. I feel like there should have been a stronger like second act of the Phantom Menace. I think the second act really drags this movie down, and it just sort of I think it meanders a lot. And now for the Jedi Council, I wish that they did more in this film than they actually do. They just sit around in this room, the Jedi Council room, and they just talk about the problem instead of doing something. So I would have liked that this movie had shown the Jedi more active. Like, where are they during the finale? Why didn't they go to help out Padme? I mean, wouldn't that have made any more sense? I just don't understand why they didn't help. It's almost like they didn't feel like it. Like, it's just why didn't they go out to help? I don't really understand it. But yeah, I liked some of the Jedi here. I liked the introduction. Mace Windu, Samuel L. Jackson, I think is good, but his character is very underwritten in my opinion. We don't know much about Mace Windu. He looks cool. He has a purple lightsaber, and that's it. I mean, it's Samuel L. Jackson playing him, so we do like him. But he sort of says dumb things sometimes, especially in the second one, which we'll get to eventually. But yeah, I think that Mace Windu is an okay character. You got Yaddle in there, Yoda. Yoda, I don't think is the same character that we had in Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. He's very different. And it makes sense maybe that he's different because it's another time of his life. So he can be a little bit wiser and less jokey than he was. He doesn't make as much jokes as he did when he was on Dagobah. I'm sort of bored watching this scene, the entire Coruscant scene, because it's I don't think that it's interesting enough. and it needs more action, especially since it's a Star Wars movie. So that's my take on it. So they performs tests on Anakin Skywalker, and of course they don't want to train him because I don't really understand why they don't. So they don't want to train him, and of course Anakin has thoughts of his mother. He is not feeling too well. I love the scene between him and Padme, and I think that it's a really nice written scene. It sort of develops their chemistry and their relationship together. I thought that was nice. It was a quiet scene. So Padme goes to Coruscant so she can plead her people's case to Valorium and the Galactic Senate. And like the entire Senate meetings here, I don't think they're really all that interesting. Again, I think that they are way too long, and just get over with Coruscant. I know that they sort of have to be in the movie, but do they really have to be here? I love seeing the ETs here in this scene. The ETs from the movie ET, the Steven Spielberg's film. I love the little connection between E.T. and Star Wars, where in the movie in E.T. looks up and at Yoda and says "home," and then we see E.T. is in the Phantom Menace, which I think is really cool. I think it's a nice little inside joke. I don't think that it means that there's Earth in the Star Wars universe. I don't think that's makes it canon really, but I enjoy what this little gag. So Padme Amidala gets really frustrated with the corruption of the Senate. They try to vote to elect a more capable leader of the Senate, but of course it doesn't work. So they decide to head to Naboo to ask the Gungans for help. And I really like this scene. I love how they plead to Gungan, and then Padme, she reveals herself as the true queen of Naboo. And I love everything about this scene. I love the small smiles of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. They give each other. Well, I think that they sort of knew that she was the queen of Naboo, so to them it's not really a surprise. It's more a surprise to the audience, and I really liked this reveal. Boss Nass accepts their help, and the Gungans and the rebellion, they sort of become friends. They become allies, and I think that's a good thing, a good scene. So there's like 4 things going on in this finale, and I think that it's all right. Maybe there's a few things that you could have shaved here and there. Maybe there's too much going on. I get it. That's a complaint I heard from this finale, but I think that it's entertaining enough. So you got Anakin going into space in his cockpit, like he goes in and then he goes to destroy this big station, almost like Luke does in A New Hope. Yeah, almost like Luke, how Luke destroys the Death Star. It's very similar. So you got that. You got Padme and her soldiers. They head for New Gunray to arrest him. And I like this entire sequence as well. I think it's really fun. It's a fun action sequence. You also have the Gungans, Jar Jar, against the droid army, and I like this sequence. I think there's a little too much slapstick humor for my taste. I think that there's just no. I don't really feel the stakes. And of course, now you have the battle between Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon. I think that this is the best part of the entire movie, hands down. This entire action sequence is just really well done. It's exciting. The music is incredible. Duel of Fates is just euphoric. At this point, it's one of the most popular Star Wars music ever done. And I just love this sequence to death. I think that the sequence elevates this movie. I think that the entire action sequence is amazing. It's phenomenal. And I just love watching it. I think it's perfect. There's not a lot of dialogue going on. I would have liked maybe a little more dialogue. Maybe the Jedi's question Maul, or they talk back and forth. But we don't get that. and that's all right. We just have this epic, awesome lightsaber duel. And so they get separated. Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan. They eventually get separated in this like chamber because Obi-Wan can't through. If he does, he probably gets killed. So the Maul eventually kills Qui-Gon, and I think that's a very sad part of the film because Qui-Gon is probably my favorite character in the movie. So he kills Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan has rage inside him. He just wants revenge on Maul. And the two finish it off. And now, Obi-Wan he falls off this sort of cliff, this sort of hole, and he hangs on this large thing. And Darth Maul, he's just sparkling, making some sparks to distract Obi-Wan, and he's waiting for Obi-Wan to drop. Probably Darth Maul didn't expect this because he had the high ground. Obi-Wan uses Qui-Gon's lightsaber with the Force, and he just makes this incredible leap. He does a flip, and he grabs Qui-Gon's lightsaber and cuts off Darth Maul in half. And Darth Maul falls, and you think he's dead, but eventually George Lucas brings him back in the Clone Wars. Qui-Gon begs Obi-Wan to train Anakin. He says he's the prophecy, you have to train him. And Obi-Wan goes to Master Yoda, who doesn't want to train him, but eventually agrees because I guess that's how we have to go for him to become Darth Vader. So he agrees for Obi-Wan to train Anakin. On side note on Yoda, I much prefer Yoda in the later releases of the Phantom Menace. I much prefer the CGI Yoda than the puppet Yoda because the puppet just really looked terrible in the Phantom Menace. So I'm glad that they changed it up. I think it's probably one of the most necessary changes that George Lucas has ever made. So yeah, they have a funeral for Qui-Gon, and Emperor Palpatine is there, Jar Jar, everybody is at the funeral, Anakin. And I'm pretty sure this wasn't like accidental. I love how the two people that were left before Palpatine to take care of is Obi-Wan and Padme, and that's how like they're online in the funeral. I think it's Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme, and then Emperor Palpatine. So like he has to take care of these two to get to Anakin. I think that's a very, very cool image. So yeah, they have a funeral for Qui-Gon, and an entire celebration because they managed to liberate Naboo. They liberated the world. And everybody is happy. I love the song, the ending music. I think the ending music really makes it all really worthwhile. And yeah, this movie ends on a happy note. It ends on a much happier note than episode 2 and episode 3 combined. And it feels, this movie does have a feeling of the original trilogy. This ending does really have me remembering or just feeling like the ending of A New Hope. It's very similar in a sense. And yeah, they party, and I'm sure all of them got very drunk. And yeah, that's how this movie closes. So yeah, I think that this movie has a lot going for it, but a few things that keep it from being great. The dialogue, the acting sometimes is a bit stilted, and there are some entire sequences that I think really drag this movie down. I feel like the second act of this film should have been much more exciting because that's a bummer, because I think that the first act and the third act is very entertaining. They're pretty well done. Here are my thoughts on the Phantom Menace. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'd probably give the movie a B minus. I think that it got better a little bit with age. I don't love this movie. I don't hate this movie. I think it's okay. I think that it could be improved in some certain areas. It's not perfect by any means, but it's just the entire second act of this movie when they go to Tatooine and then they go to Coruscant. It's pretty boring, and it's hard to get through almost. So. But yeah, I think that Liam Neeson, Natalie Portman, and Ewan McGregor were perfect for the original three. I think they were really good in their own roles, even though they don't react to some of the things most of the time. I think that they are really good actors. But it does have an entertaining quality and some fun action sequences. And I do watch this movie once in a while when I feel like it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Phantom Menace. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. See you next time. Bye.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy?
He can see things before they happen.
He can help you.
The Force is unusually strong with him.
He was meant to help you.
Anakin! Tell him to take off!
Will I ever see you again?
What does your heart tell you?
Are you sure about this? Trusting our fate to a boy we hardly know?
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I sense much fear in you.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.